Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. This is a public hearing on the fiscal year 2021 capital budget and fiscal year 2021 through 2026 capital improvements plan for county government, Montgomery County Public Schools, Montgomery College, the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, the Washington Suburban Transit Commission, the Revenue Authority, the Housing Opportunities Commission, and municipality and state projects. Projects in the 6-year program include facilities for parks, recreation, roads, schools, the community college, libraries, fire stations, mass transit, housing, police, corrections and rehabilitation, general government, and other public purposes. Capital projects are primarily funded with money from future issuance of bonds. Additions, deletions, or modifications to the CIP and capital budget may be made subsequent to the public hearings. Council action on the WSSC CIP is also an update to the Comprehensive Water Supply and Sewerage Systems Plan. For everyone scheduled to testify, please bring your copies of your written testimony to the clerk at this time, to my left and your right. Before beginning your presentation, please touch the red button at the base of the microphone, and when you finish speaking, please cut your microphone off. When you begin your presentation, please state your name clearly for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak. A yellow light in front of you will come on when you have 30 seconds left in which to finish your presentation. Please end your statement when the red light comes on. This evening, for the first panel, we have Joel Rubin, Kristen from the town of Chevy Chase, Kristen Nelson from Western Montgomery County Citizens Advisory Board, Janine Italiana, the Greater Bethesda Chamber of Commerce, Chris Gillis from Montgomery Housing Partnership, David Helms as an individual, Peter Gray from the Washington Area Bicyclist Association, and Gloria Blackwell from the Board of Trustees of Montgomery College. If Joel Rubin could begin when he's ready, please. You got to touch it one more time, Joel. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. President. Great. Okay. Good to see everybody. Thank you so much for having us here tonight to testify to you for this incredibly important budget and on the budget that really impacts us all. So thank you for your service and your time. I am Joel Rubin. I'm a council member in the town of Chevy Chase, and am honored to be here to testify about the capital improvements program budget and a particular issue that impacts not just our town but also the neighboring residents and the whole of the county. The Town Council respectfully requests that you and the Council fully fund construction of the Capitol Crescent Trail Tunnel in the county's 21-26 CIP budget, FY21-26 CIP budget. We understand that in a time of challenging budget constraints, the choices before you are complicated and require careful planning. It's with this in mind that we share our concerns about the lack of funding for the CCT tunnel construction. First, there's a long history of commitments made by the county in support of the tunnel project. Second, the CCT tunnel is a matter of urgent pedestrian and cyclist safety. And third, not constructing the CCT tunnel will harm the county's transportation network as a whole. The CCT tunnel project is an important component of the Bethesda Downtown Sector Plan, which was approved by the last county council. This last council wisely supported the tunnel under Wisconsin Avenue because it will materially enhance safety for pedestrians and cyclists who visit and traverse the densely populated and most rapidly expanding urban area in Montgomery County. As Bethesda expands, safe transit corridors are vital, and as bikers, commuters rushing to the metro, parents with strollers, senior citizens, and other pedestrians compete for space with increased auto traffic on a very limited transit path, the risk of accidents undoubtedly will rise. At a time when pedestrian safety is a top concern for Montgomery County and its residents, as evidenced by the county's Vision Zero initiative, we believe that the County Council should heed the wisdom of past councils and not take this risk. The county itself estimates that there will be 1 million annual users using the Capitol Crescent Trail. Without the tunnel, cyclists and walkers will be forced onto a congested state highway. The intersection of Bethesda Avenue, Wisconsin Avenue, and Willow Lane will become a major choke point for traffic, increasing congestion with all of its harmful environmental impacts on these and adjacent arteries. Before closing, I'd like to note that the county's cumulative capital funding for transportation projects totals almost $3.5 billion, while the county's 6-year CIP includes over $943 million for transportation. The projected cost of the tunnel is $50 million, a significant sum, but not as a percentage of either of the 6-year amounts. To conclude, our town council urges you to consider the negative public safety and long-term development impacts of not constructing a tunnel. Now is the time to prevent a dangerous outcome and to honor past commitments to the residents of our wonderful county. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker is Kristen Nelson.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Kristen Nelson, and I'm here tonight representing the Western Montgomery County Citizens Advisory Board, which includes Bethesda, Chevy Chase, North Bethesda, Potomac, and Rockville. We appreciate this opportunity to comment on the capital improvements program. The board has identified 3 priority areas we would like to draw your attention to as you work on the CIP: addressing school capacity, supporting livable neighborhoods, and enhancing transportation options. Regarding schools, we ask the council to consider separate elementary school solutions for the BCC and WJ clusters. We are also eager to see the plans for Woodward High School site that avoid overcrowding and respond to the community's concerns about traffic and disruption. At all facilities, we ask you to prioritize efforts to reduce crowding over developing special programming. We urge the county to look at every opportunity for expanding capacity, including acquiring new land and repurposing sites already owned by MCPS. We also hope the council will encourage every effort to harmonize school construction with state regulations, ensuring that projects qualify for and receive matching funds from the state, maximizing our options and returning taxpayer money to the county. One of the reasons school enrollment continues to swell is that Montgomery County is a desirable place to live and work. We encourage the council to maintain that status by supporting livable neighborhoods. We ask the council to consider renovating the BCC Regional Services Center into a recreation center, upgrade the Bethesda pool to a year-round aquatic center, fund the North Bethesda Recreation Center at the Kennedy Shriver Aquatic Center with library services, and incorporate a police station and urban district office in the new Fire Station 43. Reliable, sustainable transportation options are a component of livable communities, and we're pleased to see the progress on bike lanes, especially in Bethesda and North Bethesda. We're also encouraged by plans associated with Vision Zero, but much work remains. Funding for streetscape and pedestrian safety improvements in the Pike District, adding a second metro entrance at White Flint, adding long-delayed sidewalks along Bradley Boulevard, Tuckerman Lane, and Seven Locks Road. These were first requested 20 years ago. Converting some one-way streets in Bethesda to two-way traffic, building the tunnel on the Capitol Crescent Trail in downtown Bethesda, and exploring the shared street concept for Norfolk Avenue. Finally, don't forget residential roads. Additional spending on road refurbishment is needed throughout the region. Thank you for considering these recommendations.
And thank you. Janine Italiano, please. I never get that right.
That's all right. No one else does. It's okay. Good evening. I'm Janine Italiano with the Greater Bethesda Chamber, and I'm here on behalf of our board and our more than 550 member businesses and nonprofit organizations in Montgomery County, many of which will be impacted by and or play a role in the implementation of various infrastructure projects identified in the CIP. My full report to you is in your packets. I have 2 specific comments regarding funding for transportation infrastructure and 1 general comment regarding funding for MCPS construction projects. In order to align with Montgomery County, this is going to sound ditto. I mean, the 2 of them just said what I was going to say, so, and we didn't converse about this yet. In order to align with Montgomery County's Vision Zero action plan, it's vital that the council restore funding for the following CIP items. 1, the Capitol Crescent Trail Tunnel. It's problematic and sends the wrong message to both businesses and residents that the CIP lacks funding for a path as part of the CCT. Over the last several years, the county has required new development to accommodate separated bicycle facilities and to contribute significant transportation impact taxes to allow for additional pedestrian and bicycle facilities. The county must take action and prioritize completion of the CCT in a manner that allows for pedestrians and bicyclists to safely travel the many transit options, employers, residents, restaurants, and shops in downtown Bethesda. To this end, it's critical that pedestrians and bicyclists be given every opportunity to safely and efficiently bypass the conflicts presented by the vehicle-intensive Wisconsin Avenue corridor. 2, White Flint Metro Station North Entrance. In order to leverage the many opportunities for continued tax and employment growth at Pike and Rose and the surrounding area, the county must invest in the north entrance to the White Flint Metro Station so that the northern portion of the Pike District is cohesively connected with the southern portion of this growing urban area. Again, in order to be consistent with and encourage the goals established by Vision Zero and the emphasis of discouraging single occupancy vehicles, the county must invest in transit facilities and make those goals realistic. And last, in regards to MCPS construction funding, we encourage the County Council to explore all funding solutions for MCPS construction projects so that there will not be a development moratorium in any part of Bethesda or elsewhere in the county in the coming years. It's well documented by Maryland National Park and Planning Commission and MCPS data that new development contributes impact tax revenues while having very minor impact on school enrollment as compared to turnover in existing housing stock. Accordingly, the County Council should view new residential construction as part of a comprehensive solution to addressing MCPS capacity issues, which will in turn...
Thank you very much. We'll read the rest of your testimony.
Okay, thank you.
Chris Gillis.
Good evening, Council President Katz, members of the Council. It's always good to be back here at the COB. My name is Chris Gillis, and I'm testifying on behalf of MHP. MHP's top priority in the County Executive's proposed capital budget is, surprise, surprise, additional funding to support the acquisition, development, and renovation of affordable housing and to grow the Housing Initiative Fund to $100 million annually by 2022. On the whole, we support the County Executive's budget for affordable housing programs. However, we feel the budget comes up short in terms of providing the necessary resources to accelerate the production of new affordable housing, which is critical to meeting the COG housing targets. On the positive side, we commend the County Executive's proposal to create a new Affordable Housing Opportunity Fund. The fund will be capitalized with $10 million in county dollars for each of the next 2 years, with the intention of leveraging additional private capital to make upwards of $40 to $50 million available to loan out to developers. The District of Columbia manages a comparable preservation fund and has been enormously successful. We strongly support the creation of this new fund, but we would urge the Council to be mindful of what happened the last time a fund of this kind was created. Former County Executive Leggett created a fund that was similarly aimed at preserving affordable housing and which provided short-term loans to developers. Despite the best intentions, the county soon found that there wasn't enough money in the HIF to provide long-term permanent financing to the projects when the original loans came due. All affordable housing projects in Montgomery County require some level of gap financing, and we worry that if the HIF doesn't increase by a commensurate amount, it will create a serious bottleneck on the trust fund. It potentially sets up a scenario where the lion's share of the HIF is being used to support preservation to the detriment of new production, which is no less important. For these reasons, we recommend that the Council increase funding for the HIF by $10 million in FY21. These additional resources will ensure that we don't repeat past mistakes and put us on a path of getting to $100 million by the end of 2022. Increasing the issuance of taxable bonds and/or operating dollars will help in the short term, but the scope of the housing crisis demands audacious action to generate the necessary resources. We should look to jurisdictions like San Francisco and Austin, which have approved multi-year bond measures in the hundreds of millions of dollars to tackle the crisis. The analysis performed by COG and the Urban Institute underscores the need for increased investment at the local level. The Urban Institute estimated that Montgomery County needs to create an additional 20,000 units of housing for households with incomes of $55,000 or less by 2030. If you do the math, that means we need to be producing on the order of 2,000 units a year for low to moderate income households. The HIF is how this type of housing gets built. At current funding levels, the county is only producing about 600 units a year. 2030 may sound far off, but if we as a county don't find a way to substantially grow the HIF soon, we will fall far short of our goals. We
Thank
thank
you
the
very
council
much.
for its
We'll
past support.
Thank you. We'll read the rest. David Helms.
Hello, Council. My name is David Helms. Been active in Vision Zero, first with Henson Trail when 2 cyclists were killed there. Most recently, some of the Go Shoe memorials that stood with many of you and trying to reconcile and mitigate the threats to the pedestrians and cyclists. I'm here to advocate for the Capitol Crescent Trail Tunnel. Since the closing, 300,000 people have disappeared from Bethesda, according to the bike counter there. So that's pedestrians and cyclists. It's a huge, the tunnel and the trail are a huge thing to the economy for Bethesda. The surface trail is supposed to go across Bethesda Willow Ave. Right now there's 1,256 people per day on there. That's the 21st most busy intersection. You know, when you put the trail across that thing, it's going to go up to over 5,000 a day, across about 40,000 vehicles per day. That's a huge thing. It'll become the second most busy intersection in the county at that point. Right now, there's been 5 crashes in the last 3 years at the Bethesda Willow. Of course, with the amount of potential threats there with collisions, you know, there's going to be more people hit and potentially dead. The development in Bethesda, we're seeing 2 million square feet of commercial, 600,000 square feet of retail, 3,000 dwelling units. You know, it's getting busy. It's going to get worse. From the Marriott study, there's been a traffic impact study where, you know, there's going to be about a 50% increase in traffic in the peak dailies. That might get it up to 55,000 vehicles per day. And you're going to put 5,000 people across that? Is that what we're going to do? Does that make sense? So, you know, the detour is an extra 500 feet, an extra 11 lanes, 5 minutes of extra time. If you're commuting 10 minutes a day back and forth, would that be reasonable? You know, so that's in the walk space, that's like 1,000 less households. You know, we're trying to get the 55% for the Bethesda, and you're trying to make it harder to walk or ride to the Purple Line. Purple Line boardings, you know, indicated another 7,000 people at the Purple Line boardings and another 1,000 potentially cyclists, and you're going to put them across this road. Does that make sense? I don't think so. As far as, you know, missed opportunity costs, we're going to put $601 million on the trail. We're going to put $2 billion on the Purple Line. You know, we're going to put $20 million in the BIPAs. Does it make sense not to pull that together and optimize the investment? Does it make sense to delay this at construction costs going up at 4% a year and $2 billion a year? Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Gray.
Council President Katz and members of the council, my name is Peter Gray, and I am here representing the Washington Area Bicyclist Association. It's 1,500 members, live in the county, and the thousands of WABA supporters who live, work, and travel here. We celebrate the work that the council has done over the past several years to get the Purple Line built and the Capitol Crescent Trail extended to downtown Silver Spring. As new bridges rise over Colesville Road and Connecticut Avenue, we can actually watch a more multimodal and accessible future taking place. The council was wise to invest in new public transit and trail options to travel between Bethesda and Silver Spring and Points East. Now many of the decisions the council faces for this budget will determine whether those past investments made in the Purple Line and the trail will succeed fully or not. Therefore, WABA calls on the council to fund the following priorities. Number one, to be repetitive a little bit, fund the construction of the Capitol Crescent Trail Tunnel under Wisconsin Avenue for completion by FY2023. When the trail opens, Wisconsin Avenue will be the only at-grade crossing of a state highway for the county's most used trail. No amount of engineering or design or education or enforcement will eliminate the risk of thousands of walkers, cyclists, and kids crossing Wisconsin's 6 lanes and 40,000 daily cars and trucks. Value engineer to cut costs if you must, but this tunnel is not optional for this regional transportation and public health treasure. Number 2, reverse the proposed delays to the Metropolitan Branch Trail from the Silver Spring Transit Center to Tacoma Park and to the Fenton Street protected bike lanes. By avoiding further delay of these projects, the council can maximize the connections between the Silver Spring CBD, the surrounding neighborhoods, the Purple Line, and the trail by the time the Purple Line opens. Number 3, fund a delivery pipeline for the Tier 1 Bike Master Plan planned bikeways. The first tier, which builds networks in the urban areas and low-stress connections to them, needs a funding mechanism for urgent design and construction. At a minimum, all Tier 1 projects should be designed and more than half constructed within the course of this CIP. 4, restore funds for park department that were removed by the county executive in his proposed CIP budget, especially all funding for trails in our parks. And number 5, update the design for the dual bikeways proposed in the 7 Locks and Bradley Boulevard bike ped projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gloria Blackwell.
Buenas noches. My name is Gloria Blackwell. I'm the chair of the Montgomery College Board of Trustees. Because of you, MC empowers students to change their life. Our alumni, in turn, empower our community, fueling the workforce with homegrown talent. As you know, because I am an alumnus, from Venezuela to classroom at MC, and now the chair of the board. Let me ask you a question. What does a vice president from Hughes Network, an FDA biomedical engineer, and a chief technology officer have in common? Yes, you guessed right, Montgomery College. Jim Muir is the vice president at Hughes Network System. As an industry leader, he also helps spur jobs growth at PIC-MC, the College Science and Tech Park Foundation. Shutri Mistry holds degree from MC, Georgia Tech, and Johns Hopkins. Today, she's a biomedical engineer with the FDA. She leads the process to review and approve medical devices. Ian Latonsky is the Chief Technology Officer for LearnCillian, a company that provides MCPS math curriculum for grades 6 to 8. Yes, your MC opens doors to opportunities and produces the skilled talent that contribute $1 billion to our economy. However, it takes quality facilities to produce not only skilled talent, but also entrepreneurs like Martin Majorga, who now oversees a coffee empire. Unfortunately, the libraries on our campus are miserable, out of date. So many of our students lack access to quiet study spaces. They need spaces to gather with other students. Frankly, they need the books. Too many cannot afford textbooks and rely on library materials. Students also need access to important services like financial aid, registration, and counseling. So please keep the new Student Services Center at Germantown campus moving forward. Finally, I ask for deferred maintenance funds. Help us maximize the use and the longevity of existing facilities. With your support, we can develop the next generation of tech leaders, biomedical engineers, CTOs, entrepreneurs, the skilled talent to ensure Montgomery County thrive. Again, muchísimas gracias. On time. Thank you.
And under budget. You did great.
Yes.
Thank you very much. There are no questions, and we thank the panel for their testimony. The next panel is Katherine Contreras, who's an individual, Diana Ditto, Noyes Children Library Foundation, Todd Bauer, individual, Christopher Bowerman, Watkins Mill High School Cluster, Brian Rubin, individual, and John Patoxis, Habitat for Humanity Metro Board. Metro Maryland. Katherine Contreras,
Here.
please.
Okay.
No, you cut it off. It was on. There you go. There you go.
Good evening. My name is Katherine Contreras, and I'm a junior at Thomas S. Wooten High School. I've been a student intern in the special education programs at Wooten for 3 years now, and I'm also chapter president for the Best Buddies Wooten chapter. The special education programs at Wooten fulfill the needs of 26 students with special abilities. These 26 students are my best friends. Today, I am here to be the voice of students who don't often get the opportunity to have a voice. Just because these students aren't able to express their voice like I am today does not mean that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have a say on issues that directly affect them. The Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law 30 years ago. The ADA states that all public entities must be ADA compliant, yet a majority of public schools in Montgomery County are not ADA compliant. The lack of ADA compliance not only puts my 26 best friends at risk, but it puts thousands of students with disabilities all over the county at risk. When a student enters a school building, they should feel safe and like they belong there. Students with special abilities should not have to struggle when entering school buildings, traveling the halls, or attending school events. They should feel safe and welcomed just like any other student. Students with special abilities can't learn and feel safe in these buildings because these buildings are constantly putting them in harm's way and at a disadvantage. High school is supposed to be a time where people grow and learn to become independent. Our goal is to make our students with special abilities independent. Yet they can't even push themselves in their own wheelchairs due to the uneven door entrances and ramps that are steeper than they should be. The lack of ADA compliance not only puts them at a learning disadvantage, but also a social disadvantage. I personally cannot bring most of my friends to school events because of the lack of ADA compliance in Montgomery County. As previously stated, the ADA has been a federal law for 30 years now. And yet Montgomery County public schools in Montgomery County are still not ADA compliant. Why is this taking so long? Within the last 2 years, we've had people from the council, Board of Education, and other officials come to Wooten and promise change will happen, yet no change has happened. Our students and students all over the county are still struggling to access their school buildings. The lack of care and attention for the ADA and students with special abilities in Montgomery County is unacceptable. Enough is enough. Everyone deserves a right to an education, and the lack of access to a building should not be the reason someone does not get a free, equal education. Take your oath and mandate seriously as a public servant to make public schools in Montgomery County accessible to the public, not just people who are able-bodied. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Catherine, thank you for your testimony, and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Diana Ditto.
Members of the County Council, I'm Diana Ditto. I am co-president of the Noyes Children's Library Foundation. Since 1991, the foundation has been advocating for and raising funds to support the historic Noyes Library in Kensington, Maryland. The foundation's current efforts are focused on raising funds for the Make More Noise renovation project. The Noise project is not just an MCPL refresh project. It's bringing the library into long overdue ADA compliance while creating a 3-level, universally accessible library. This expanded space will house the Jan Jablonski Early Literacy Training Center, making noise through its early literacy mission, an essential part of the county's Thriving Youth and Families Initiative. The noise renovation is funded by a partnership between the foundation and the county as outlined by a memorandum of understanding that was signed in 2016. In that MOU, our agreement is to raise $1.6 million of the estimated budget of $3.1 million. During the meeting with the county in November of 2019, we were verbally informed that the cost had risen and was now estimated to be $4,070,000. In the CIP budget presented by the county executive on January 15, our contribution to the project is shown as $2,085,000. However, as per our MOU, any cost overages are to be negotiated between the county and the foundation. No negotiations have taken place, and the increased contribution listed in the CIP has not been approved by our 16-member all-volunteer board. In addition, despite numerous requests, we did not receive a copy of the new cost estimate until January 24th. To date, the foundation has raised $835,000 towards our commitment to the project. We continue to work diligently to raise funds. The renovation plans and drawings were unanimously approved by the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Committee on January 8th and are almost ready to be submitted to the permit office. With permit in hand, the project can go out to contractors for bid. While the foundation has had an impressive level of community and donor support, some large donors have felt that the county should be responsible for the renovation of a public facility, thus restricting our fundraising reach. The important thing is to keep this project moving forward so that noise can continue to serve as an essential resource to the children of our county. In an HHS committee meeting on January 14th, 2016, presided over by former council members Leventhal and Berliner, current council member Rice, these leaders expressed concern over the rising cost and clearly stated that they did not want to deprive the community of this resource if the foundation fundraising should falter. While we respect that you face many budget challenges, we are asking that the council accept the funds that the foundation has raised to date and approve moving forward with the project, with the county funding the remainder of the budget to get shovels in the ground before costs rise any farther. I assure you that the foundation will keep working to raise funds, and when this
Thank you very much. We'll read the rest of your testimony.
Thank you.
Todd Bauer.
Council members, my name is Todd Bauman from Germantown, Maryland. I'd like to thank the council for this opportunity to voice my concerns over the proposed budget cuts to Montgomery Parks for fiscal year 21 through 26. While I don't know the intricacies of our county's budget, I do know that a cut of $20 million to the parks budget would be detrimental to our community as a whole. In a society that's surrounded by and consumed with the digital lifestyle, our parks and green spaces are more important than ever. Everyone can benefit from our parks, regardless of their activity or socioeconomic status. Hikers, bikers, dog walkers, trail runners, equestrians, the list goes on and on. Our green spaces can be shared and enjoyed by anyone. Our parks play such an important role in building our community, protecting our natural resources, and providing a healthy recreational opportunities for everyone. I speak to you as a county resident, a father of two beautiful children. My kids and I have spent numerous hours on our trails, biking, hiking, but we've also spent a lot of time as volunteers. I work as volunteer crew leader for Montgomery Parks, and my children have spent time with me, earned SSL hours doing volunteer trail work, and I've gotten the opportunity to meet a lot of people from other activities who put in their time volunteering, helping to increase and expand our trail networks. And I just can't imagine what a budget cut would do to those volunteers. And it would kind of sort of gut their participation in something that they're so passionate about. And while I don't really want to think about these cuts, it's the hard reality is the negative impact that they're going to have on our community. Athletic fields at our elementary schools and middle schools will suffer from the program to improve them as that ends. Infrastructure for aging equipment or improvements at parks will be affected. Land acquisition, restoration to historic structures, the Vision Zero project, all of these and more will be affected by these cuts. And as a homeowner, I imagine that this will have an impact on mine and my neighbor's property values. And while that may seem crass, it is a true, real concern for many people. So instead of accepting this budget recommendation, I'd really like to ask the council to reject the recommendations from the county executive. I'd like to actually see an increase in the budget for our parks. Specifically an increase in the budget to our natural surface trails. This is something that connects our neighborhoods together. It allows our children to be able to access and visit their friends safely, and it gives an opportunity for parents to de-stress after a hard day's work. The other thing is that with natural surface trails, you don't need to be on a team, you don't need to check a schedule, and you don't have to pay a use fee. This is something that's available to everybody at any given time. So with that, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Christopher Bowerman.
Yes, good evening. My name is Christopher Bowerman. I am the MCC PTA Cluster Coordinator for the Watkins Mill Cluster. I am grateful to represent the Watkins Mill Cluster and be the voice of the schools before you tonight. I'm here to advocate for a budget that supports educational system, its students, teachers, and faculty as a whole, but more specifically for the 7 schools that comprise the Watkins Mill cluster. In testimony last year, I referred to our cluster as a forgotten cluster. I pointed out that the past 10 years have seen the areas surrounding the Montgomery Village heavily developed and their clusters the primary focus of the region. Now Watkins Mill cluster requires that focus. The Watkins Mill cluster is not newly developed or a resource-rich community. We have the highest farms, ESOL, and mobility rates in the entire county. All 3 of these scores are well above the county average by double digits. Every school in our cluster has a farms rate of over 50%. Our mobility rate of 22.7% is the highest, with a large portion of students living in shared housing families. Enrollments have increased, and our teachers struggle to educate children who have moved many times and are often English language learners. Our schools are neglected and aged and worn. South Lake Elementary and Neelsville Middle School have reached critical conditions that must be addressed. We are pleased to see the Board of Education place these schools as priorities of the CIP, and we ask that you keep these projects funded and on schedule. On a daily basis, the population of these schools must navigate dangerously crowded hallways and stairwells, deal with insufficient bathrooms for the number of students and faculty, endure classrooms with little or no sunlight, eat in overcrowded cafeterias that extend lunch periods, drink from crusted water fountains with foul-tasting water, freeze or sweat depending on their location due to inadequate HVAC systems, contend with no elevators and non-ADA compliant ramps, difficult to ascend and dangerous to descend. The families of Neelsville wish you to know how they feel, and I am delivering to you tonight a letter signed by over 300 community members asking you to address these conditions by supporting the CIP. South Lake and Neelsville are not our only schools in need of attention. Of the 7 schools in our cluster, only 2 have secured entrances. We have repeatedly asked that this be corrected, and we view this as a priority. Our schools are not just buildings, but are a place fundamentally founded on the idea of community. Our schools are ailing, and we hope that you will attend our plea and help us create a positive cycle within our community. By funding our schools, you will improve our community, which will in turn improve those schools. I thank you for listening, and since I got a couple seconds left, I personally want to say I support the cycling, running, pedestrian projects that were mentioned earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Rabin. Brian Rabin. John Petasis.
Good evening. My name is John Poxis. I'm the president and CEO of Habitat for Humanity Metro Maryland. Habitat for Humanity is excited to see a strong commitment to affordable housing in the FY21 budget as proposed by the county executive. We commend the creation of an Affordable Housing Opportunity Fund funded at $20 million over 2 years. These dollars will be leveraged and used by affordable housing developers for short-term acquisition financing. This funding will be crucial for preserving affordable housing, particularly around the Purple Line stops. The CIP budget, as recommended, includes $132 million over 6 years for Affordable Housing Acquisition and Preservation Fund, portion of the Housing Initiative Fund. While we're always happy to see level funding, especially in a challenging budget season, we believe that amount will need to be increased in order to meet the demand for safe, decent, affordable housing in our community. We applaud the Council for its commitment to meet the housing shortfall projections laid out in the Council of Governments report. In order to produce more than 23,000 affordable units, we need to make more funding available in the Housing Initiative Fund while thinking creatively about how we can bring new partners to leverage public dollars. We encourage the Council to consider increasing the Housing Initiative Fund over the level recommended in the draft FY21 budget. We appreciate the Council's dedication to meeting the housing goals laid out in the COG report and to affordable housing more broadly. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. There are no questions of the panel. We thank the panel for their testimony. The next panel is Tom Gutierrez, an individual, Maggie Connelly from Blake High School Cluster, Ralph Bennett, Purple Line Now, Huckleberry Finn, individual, Michelle Muller, Northwood High School Cluster. That's, I guess. Tom Gutierrez. You need to, there it is, okay.
Hey, good evening. And my name's Tom Gutierrez. I'm testifying here today on behalf of Equestrian Partners in Conservation, or EPIC. EPIC is a Montgomery County-based equestrian organization dedicated to expanding and preserving trails throughout Montgomery County. I'm also here on behalf of my family. We've lived in the greater Poolesville area for 20 years and feel strongly about the trails. My focus tonight will be on what I believe to be a serious shortcoming with respect to the recommended budget for the Montgomery County Parks Department insofar as trail acquisition, expansion, and maintenance are concerned. Overall, the recommended budget will cut more than $20 million from the minimum request made by the Parks Department. With regards to the natural surface trails, in particular, the 6-year capital budget includes only $2.2 million for trails out of a total budget of $254 million. That's less than 1% and is unacceptably low. I'm particularly concerned that the recommended budget would cut more than $1.5 million from the Legacy Open Space Program. That, in turn, would necessitate cuts in annual funding to support expansion of the county's trail network and to Vision Project Zero. The trails bring many benefits to county residents. The trail systems and associated open space are the primary reasons that my family continues to reside in Montgomery County. My wife and I both commute to Washington, D.C. on a regular basis for work. We are pleased to accept the long commute as a trade-off for living in an open space area that our neighbors refer to as God's country. In addition, as an equestrian, I frequently utilized natural surface trails in many different parks, so too to the many other members of the clubs with whom I ride. But significantly, the county's parks are far more than recreational resources. They help establish an aura of living in the country while being in the shadow of the nation's capital. They also contribute substantially to the local economy. Equestrians and bikers buy locally, and their activities also often involve substantial investment. For all these reasons, I urge you to examine closely the recommended capital budget for parks and to increase it to at least the minimum levels requested by the Department of Parks. In closing, I thank you for the courtesy of listening to my discussion.
Thank you. Maggie Connelly.
Hello, my name is Maggie Connelly, and I'm pleased to sit here before you on behalf of school communities that are brimming with innovation, programming, and community despite the physical restrictions and limitations they feel within their buildings and systems within those buildings. I'm here representing the Blake Cluster Schools as well as the broader Northeast Consortium, as my fellow cluster coordinators were unable to join us. We, as a cluster, were grateful when we saw the CIP recommendations that you received from the Board of Ed, recognizing some of those needs, and included specific plans for prioritizing capital projects for 4 elementary schools across the county. 2 of them are in our cluster, Burt Mills Elementary School and Stonegate Elementary School, suggesting new schools in the coming years. It was energizing and gratifying that these schools, whose populations and needs have been significant for many years, would both, by the middle of the 23-24 school year, be moved into new buildings to have those needs met. 3 of our cluster elementary schools, Burt Mills, Stonegate, and Page, are currently over capacity, with 26 relocatable classrooms between them. It is that trajectory was understood and led to the recommendation for 2 of these to receive major capital projects and the 3rd a classroom addition. This overcrowding is unacceptable and must be addressed. I sit before you and acknowledge that as the County Council, you are in the precarious position to consider all of the CIP needs of our large and ever-changing county, find funding for those competing needs, and set priorities for the short-term and long-term future. I appreciate that challenge and continue to ask you to keep the students and families of the East County in mind when you make your decisions and set your priorities, knowing that I don't really have a magical answer of balancing our expense needs with the revenue reality. Under the heading of thriving youth and families, the county executive recommendation acknowledges that children need great schools, supportive families, and caring communities to help them succeed in life. Right now, our classrooms are led by great teachers. Our programs offer a variety of opportunities for different interests and possibilities. Our students come to school wanting to learn, and our communities work hard to provide for their families. The buildings that house these students and their dedicated teachers at Burnt Mills, Stonegate, and Page create a barrier to allowing these students to fully reach their great potential. Instead of relieving stress on families, walking into these buildings, studying in these buildings, and having these buildings at the center of our communities adds stress with significant safety, education, and health concerns. Funding for these capital projects will go a long way to alleviate that. As you set your priorities for the coming year, we encourage you to continue to work with the state delegation and MCPS to maximize how the money can be used for the whole system.
Thank you very much. Ralph Bennett.
Good evening. I'm Ralph Bennett. I'm board president of Purple Line Now, longtime advocates for the project. We understand that the pedestrian bicycle tunnel under Wisconsin Avenue at the west end of the line has been completely deleted from the capital improvement plan, both for next year and beyond. There are two problems for us with this proposal. Commitments were made years ago to complete the Capitol Crescent Trail with a parallel pedestrian bicycle path parallel to the Purple Line tracks under Wisconsin Avenue. We understand that the construction complexities have caused the cost of the tunnel to rise as a result of the construction of the replacement for the Apex building over the Bethesda Purple Line station, precisely the kind of capital investment the Purple Line was predicted and intended to stimulate. We do not feel that this complexity justifies abandoning commitments made about the project, particularly given the added tax revenue the new building will provide. Moreover, the at-grade alternative proposed compromises the efficient, safe nature of the new trail. The new trail that is being constructed along the Purple Line alignment has improved crossings at Connecticut Avenue and Jones Bridge Road. It would be a shame to lose the formerly safe and efficient underground crossing at heavily trafficked Wisconsin Avenue. Secondly, time is critical. While the area is under construction, now is the time to do the work. The economies will result from the projects being built together as they are on other parts of the line. Future construction will only be more expensive and extend the inconvenience of construction. Please do not forfeit this opportunity to keep the promise and get the entire project completed on time. Thank you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Mr. Finn? No? Michelle Muller?
Good evening, Council President Navarro, esteemed County Council members, and members of the community. My name is Michelle Mahler, and I am one of the cluster coordinators for the Northwood Cluster. I'm a parent of 2 children enrolled in MCPS and the parent of an MCPS graduate. I'm speaking tonight in support of full funding for the Superintendent's FY2021 capital budget. Anything less than full funding would jeopardize the future of MCPS and of Montgomery County as a whole. As we know, overcrowding in many MCPS schools has reached crisis levels. Due to school overcrowding, all of the Northwood and Blair cluster boundary areas are in a building moratorium. The future of growth and development in many neighborhoods in Silver Spring and Wheaton is in question as long as these areas remain in moratorium. Simply stated, underfunding the superintendent's budget request could have grave economic impacts for Montgomery County. However, the human cost of this overcrowding situation is even more compelling. Several of our Northwood Cluster schools are experiencing long-standing issues with overcrowding, outdated facilities, and serious maintenance problems. We are not talking about getting shiny new schools for our students. What we need is functional school buildings that meet our basic needs. Highland View Elementary is currently 150% over capacity and has been considerably over capacity for nearly 10 years and has had portables for 20 years. This year has finally seen funds from the capital budget to begin planning for an addition to this desperately overcrowded school. Less than full funding for this budget practically guarantees that Highland Views addition will be moved several more years down the road. If there's no more room for portables and no more space in the building, where will the children go to school? Silver Spring International Middle School needs the renovation that brings the building at least partially up to ADA compliance and calls for a gym to be built inside the school building, eliminating the needs for sim students to traverse the length of the school outdoors to attend gym class in the detached field house, which is located next to a busy road, a bus route, and a soon-to-be-open Purple Line station. If MCPS lacks funding for the renovation, will students be forced to continue to take this unsafe route to get to gym class? Northwood High School is projected to be 500 students over capacity by the time students move into the holding school at Woodward, if that facility gets built. The school currently has 10 portables and will likely need more prior to the Woodward move. Students struggle to get a school lunch in the time allotted, and some have given up eating lunch altogether in a school that is over 50% farms. Additionally, students face difficulties in getting through hallways between classes, and many rooms do not have enough desks. The school plumbing is inadequate for the current staff and student population of 2,000, with too few bathrooms and overflowing toilets, causing consternation on a daily basis. How will the school meet even the most basic of students' needs if the construction of Woodward and Northwood renovations are pushed off even further by a lack of funding from the county? On behalf of the Northwood Cluster, I call for the county to fully fund the CIP and address our cluster needs. And on behalf of my cluster colleagues, we look forward to working with the County Council, the State of Maryland, and CPS to allow for planning instruction to move forward.
Thank you very much. There are no questions of this panel. We thank this panel for their testimony. The next panel is Alan Hutchison Maxwell, an individual, Emily Beckman from Walter Johnson High School Cluster, AmandaFarber, an individual, Giles Shaw, a Montgomery County Cricket Community, Sarah Brooks, individual, and Rochelle Adu, a student senate, Montgomery College, Tacoma Park, Silver Spring campus. And the first speaker is Alan Hutchison Maxwell.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Alan Hutchison Maxwell, and I live in downtown Silver Spring. I'm testifying tonight to encourage the council to restore funding for the Capitol Crescent Trail Tunnel to the Capital Improvements Program budget. I love the Capitol Crescent Trail. On my regular bike commutes on the old gravel trail from Silver Spring down through Bethesda to the paved trail down to Georgetown, the trail feels like a green refuge where I can escape from the traffic and noise of the busy roads. It also connects to the C&O Canal towpath, where I've spent many wonderful hours biking and walking. The miles of mostly uninterrupted trail provide a low-stress route for people of all ages to get around the county while leaving their cars behind. I think it is incredible that we have these public spaces for everyone to use. I want all of us to have this experience of getting outdoors. I want everyone in the county to be able to walk or bike or roll to work or to the grocery store or the park safely without having to compete with cars. Without the tunnel, the safety of trail users traveling through Bethesda will be severely compromised. In Oslo, Norway, there were 0 cyclist and pedestrian fatalities in 2019. This was the result of a committed, years-long effort by citizens and government in service of a belief that people do not have to die on our roadways, that no one should have to mourn the loss of a loved one who died attempting to cross the street or get to work. I believe that we can accomplish this in Montgomery County if we have the courage to try. An at-grade trail crossing of Wisconsin Avenue will cause injuries or deaths among the thousands of people who use the Capitol Crescent Trail for recreation and transportation. I applaud the county for hiring a full-time Vision Zero coordinator, but achieving Vision Zero will also require the political will to build much-needed infrastructure to protect vulnerable people in our county. I ask that you choose to build a community that will be safer and more sustainable for generations of future residents. We cannot afford to delay this project any longer. Safer streets and trails benefit all of us. I urge you to fulfill the promise of the Capitol Crescent Trail by building the tunnel. And as a spouse of an MCPS teacher, I also say, please fund all the school projects. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Emily Beck.
Thank you for this opportunity to testify on behalf of the nearly 10,000 students, their teachers, and their families who make up the WJ Cluster community. We are here tonight to urge the Council to reject the County Executive's proposed cut to the MCPS CIP and to instead adopt the Board of Education's full request. The simple fact is that Montgomery County's public school population has grown rapidly since 2007. In 10 of the last 11 years, MCPS has added over a full high school's worth of new students to the system. Yet funding for building and renovating schools has not kept pace with the increase in enrollment. MCPS has been operating in triage mode for more than 10 years, and it shows in our overcrowded schools and in our schools that are in desperate need of significant renovations. Every single project in the board's CIP is necessary, and many are long overdue. That is why the county executive's proposed budget cut must be rejected. Specific to Walter Johnson, our cluster schools have three primary concerns, which are discussed in detail in our written testimony: high school capacity, elementary overcrowding, and accurate and reliable data, especially enrollment forecasting. In this oral testimony, I'd like to focus on high school capacity. In the fall of 2024, 1 year before the planned reopening of Woodward High School, WJ is projected to be 871 students over capacity, a total enrollment of 3,192 students in a building built for 2,300. The students who will squeeze through those crowded halls and populate those learning cottages, as they're now called, when the year before Woodward opens are currently in 4th, 5th, and 6th grades, including my 5th grader. In the WJ cluster, we know what it feels like to attend overcrowded schools. Crowded hallways, absurd lunch times, large class sizes, and the need for changes in school staffing and organization. The current WJ building still includes parts of the original 1956 structure, such as hallways and stairwells that were built for a much smaller population. This year, while only 427 students over capacity, the administration has had to restrict the smaller stairwells to only one direction during class transitions due to safety concerns. We understand that many other high schools face the same capacity challenges as WJ. The recently underway boundary analysis shows no underutilized high schools in the county. All are either at optimal utilization or overcapacity. And that is why the superintendent has recommended that Woodward reopen. Reopening Woodward has always been intended by us, by the superintendent, and by the Board of Education to provide a regional solution to overcrowding at the high school level. We need high school capacity, we need Woodward to reopen, and we need the funds for it to reopen on time in the fall of 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. AmandaFarber.
Good evening. My name is AmandaFarber. I'm Vice President of the East Bethesda Citizens Association and a member of the Bethesda Implementation Advisory Committee. I'm here tonight to speak personally towards two important budget items, amongst so many. If you, your family, or your friends have ever watched a baseball game at Norwood Park, gone down the big fun slides at Wheaton Regional Park, taken a dog to run around Ellsworth Urban Dog Park, appreciated the tree canopy surrounding Lake Needwood, toured the historic buildings at Woodlawn Manor, run on Sligo Creek Trail, watched the wildlife in the natural wetland habitat at Germantown Town Center Urban Park, wondered how many lights there are at Brookside Gardens each holiday season, or fed Porky the pig talking trash can at Cabin John Park, which I loved as a kid, and now 40 years later I love as an adult, then you know how incredibly awesome and diverse our park system is here in Montgomery County. Our neighborhood even started a local hashtag Park Love campaign last summer, and so I can tell you without question, there's a great deal of love for our existing parks and excitement for promised new urban parks for everyone. But in order for these parks and many others to be properly maintained and expanded to meet a growing urban population, they need more than just love, they need funds. Please prioritize park funds in the CIP. The second item I wish to speak to is the Capitol Crescent Trail Tunnel funding. I support the testimony provided by others on this issue. When the safe passage of the tunnel under Wisconsin Avenue was closed in 2017, everyone was assured there would be a new trail tunnel. After all, this is one of the busiest trails in the area, and the county had provided millions in incentives for the Apex building to redevelop in part for this purpose, and is spending millions on the tunnel design. Well, I visited the site last week. Here it is. It now exists as an expensive dead end. The fact is that if the rest of this tunnel is not funded and constructed now, the project will only get more expensive, will be more disruptive, and possibly maybe even never built. Plans, whether they be bikeways, pedestrian and ADA improvements, new parks, or this tunnel, don't count if they only exist on paper. Please do what is in your power to ensure the best, safest, greenest infrastructure is actually delivered. Thank you, and thank you for your work on everything you do.
Thank you very much. Vijal Shah. Yeah, you got to cut there. There you go.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bijal Shah. I represent the Montgomery County cricket community. My story tonight is just like any other immigrant and an American dream. I moved into this country in 2003 and moved into Maryland in 2006. I live in Germantown. My son goes to Ronald McNair Elementary School. I work for a very large Fortune 500 financial firm. But outside of my 9 to 5, what I do is I gather a lot of my community members, mainly from South Asian countries, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and we play cricket. I grew up playing cricket in India, and cricket is just not a game for us, it's a religion, it's a sentiment, it's an emotion that we all grew up. Just for the record, cricket is the second largest popular game in the world, for those of you who don't know. And it's currently being watched by over 2 billion people around the world. So we started a small cricket program back in 2006, gathering about 5 or 10 of us in a parking lot, in a tennis court, in a baseball field. And many of times we were kicked out of those temporary spaces. Many of times we were playing in an unsafe conditions, unplayed conditions as well. So we started this journey working with the Montgomery Parks since 2006. And as part of our last CIP on July 31st, 2015, we were approved $2.1 million for 2 purpose-built cricket field in South Germantown. Finally, in 2019, we got first field that was made available to us. And before the field was open, it was 100% booked. So you guys can imagine what the demand is out there. Last year, Maryland Cricket Premier League, the community that I represent, we had 300 games scheduled over the entire year, starting from March all the way through October. The second field is just sitting out there. It's a dead end. It's a land that is not even developed yet, and it's not even in the books. And these budget cuts are going to impact these developments, the second field furthermore. We already are catching up to the demand, and if these budget cuts continue to happen, then we're going to have another 10 years of wait time. We have struggled a lot so far, and I think we should do the right things by investing in cricket infrastructure. This year, Maryland will host its first ever national tournament. We're going to invite 80 teams as far as from California all the way through Massachusetts. These 80 teams, 15 kids, and each of these teams, and along with their parents, we're going to see a lot of economic development as well. So I just wanted to request the county council to continue to invest in our parks. There are all the other events that we do outside of the cricket. We do a large public event in April every year, Color and Kite Festival. Approximately about 4,500 to 5,000 people attend that event. That tells me that how much we value the diversity. That tells me how much we value the people with different colors and opinions in this county. I'm just requesting one more time that we continue to invest in Montgomery Parks, support their programs, and so that we can get to see our second field very soon. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Sarah Brooks. Sarah Brooks. Oh, there you go.
Sorry. So good evening, members of the council. Thanks for
Can you be closer to the mic, please?
Sure.
There you
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of all the students, teachers, and families of Stonegate Elementary in the Stonegate neighborhood of Silver Spring, located in District 4. My name is Sarah Brooks, and I'm a physician and mother of 2 current students and 2 future students at Stonegate Elementary. I've been associated with this elementary school since my nephew was a student there 15 years ago. I love it. It's the heart and soul of our neighborhood. Over the years, I've watched the school become more crowded and the infrastructure deteriorate. When my children first started 6 years ago, we were on a list of schools to get major renovations. So it didn't really bother me when the trailers were added to the schools to the school to address the overcrowding. The years went by and there were no renovations. Stonegate was built in 1971 and is supposed to have a maximum capacity of 372. There are about 600 staff and students now currently in the building, and according to the Northeast Consortium of Elementary School Analytics, Stonegate is one of 5 out of 16 schools that was never revitalized or renovated in any way. It has the 3rd highest school utilization and the 2nd fewest classrooms and is the smallest in the consortium. As a doctor and a mom, I'm in a unique position to understand the mental health constraints in overcrowding places on students and staff. The students are crowded and have little room to complete their work in an orderly fashion, especially during large projects. They often sit in the cold, uncarpeted floor, and they frequently work in hallways, which is uncomfortable and unsafe. The temperature in the rooms vacillate wildly between too hot and too cold due to the disrepair of the HVAC system. People who are too hot or too cold have a difficult time with focus and task completion. At the beginning of the year, the AC wasn't working in several classrooms, and they were hot and sweaty and couldn't concentrate. Just down the hall, they were freezing and had to wear sweatshirts. This temperature variation makes it difficult to dress appropriately. The air quality is also poor. Earlier in the year, the air was so humid that they put an industrial-strength dehumidifier in. It had 1 large garbage can of water a day. Increased humidity leads to mold, which is not healthy, makes asthma exacerbations, rashes, headaches, etc. In addition, there has been lead in a few of the drinking fountains, which most people know to be very toxic. The last point I will make is about school security. The school has a significant number of portables attached to it. There's only 1 entrance and exit, which is totally unmonitored by video or speaker. There's no fence around the school. People from the neighborhood can walk in and out of the playground and the portable area completely unimpeded any time of day. Every day I drop off my kids thinking about someone being abducted from the playground, and like many other parents, I fear a school shooting. The lack of security is terrifying. Stonegate Elementary is requesting that the County Council fully fund the budget that the Board of Education has already passed. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Rochelle Adu.
Council President Katz and the esteemed members of the County Council, I say to you good evening. My name is Rochelle Adu, and I am the president of the Student Senate of Montgomery College's Tacoma Park Silver Spring campus. I am here to thank you for your support of our college and to ask that you fully fund MC's capital budget request, including the library renovations and the Leggett Math and Science buildings. I am excited to represent MC students tonight, students who never knew how they would afford college, students that MC gave a chance to. I vividly remember a time not too long ago when I pondered about how I could afford to get a college education. MC answered that call. I attended school from Galway Elementary to Paint Branch High School, so I was excited that I could stay home in this county to continue my education, a county that has always been supportive of my family and I. And that is just what MC is about, supporting students to get their education so that they can continue to live and work here in our community. I am a proud Raptor who knows that MC's faculty and staff are truly dedicated to supporting students to achieve excellence. However, sometimes that's hard when there are not enough resources. The library is one of those resources. The library, a central part of our campus, is a safe haven for our students, a place to study between work and school, to meet with small learning groups, and to finish research papers. The library is a central part of our institution, but the library is falling apart. With poor lighting, weak heating, too few plugs, and plugs that don't work, not enough group study spaces, limited computers, our current libraries do not support the needs of our students. So I ask of you, please fund the renovation of MC's libraries so that they can continue to be a safe haven for all MC students. Now let me speak on a topic that has brought tremendous joy to our campus. I still remember the look of relief on the faces of my peers when we heard about the construction of the Leggett Math and Science building. If you have not taken classes in the current building, this outpour of relief might be lost on you. But to those of us who sit in the worn-out seats, work with equipment that is barely hanging on, and deal with outdated technology, we understand the relief. A modern math and science building will give students far better STEM experiences, which will in turn help students advance in their future careers. To know that we are finally getting a building that can match the passion, skill, and talent of our students bring excitement. Please continue to support the Leggett Math and Science building. Thank you again for the honor to speak to you. Please support and fully fund MC's capital budget request so students like me have access to libraries that serve as safe havens and modern math and science labs for future scientists, engineers, and teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no questions. We thank the panel for their testimony. The next panel is Eaton Makasanya, an individual, Nithya Raghavan, an individual, Danny Che from Kennedy High School Cluster, Melissa Groman, an individual, Stephen Cohen, Kensington Historical Society, and Laura Stewart, Einstein High School Cluster. Eaton, is Eaton Akasanya here, please? If you could begin.
Good evening.
You need to turn on your microphone, please.
How
There
about
you
that? Okay, good. Good evening. I have it on good authority that 9 pregnant women cannot make a baby in 1 month. So it is with budget cuts. My name is Steve Cohen, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Kensington Historical Society in support of the Parks Department budget request. First off, we're grateful for the dedicated stewardship of the department, its leadership team, and its employees, and the past support from the county, especially the generous funding for Jehias Henson, Warner Circle, and the Kensington Cabin. All are great examples of how the county funds are put to work by parks with great results. The Society understands the importance of the budget decisions and how it will impact the department's ability to complete critical projects and maintain aging infrastructure, among other things. With the county's historic sites comprising over 100 historic buildings, Parks faces a significant challenge that demands full funding. These funds go to the heart of our quality of life, our community culture, and our appreciation of history. More than that, as we're confronted by ever-increasing urban sprawl, we see our parks as a peaceful oasis, a place to play, to escape, to learn, accessible to everyone. These places are also central to the commitment made by the county to improve our environment and green spaces. In grappling with the budget priorities, you should keep in mind that the parks request is more than an expenditure. It's also an investment, a return to the county's coffers. Well, what is that return on our investment? Well, let me answer that question with more questions. Why do we paint our houses? Why do we care for our lawns? More to the point, why don't we neglect our homes? Obviously, it affects our investment. It impacts our neighbors' investment, too. In the realtor's parlance, it's about curb appeal, why someone might choose to buy our home or live in the county. My point is that our county, its parks and historic properties, is our home. It's our collective curb appeal. It is our financial value. It is the county's tax base that thrives in a quality environment. So if you're following me, cutting the parks budget affects us all in many ways and in a financially tangible way. For all these reasons I mentioned, the Society urges you to fully support the parks budget request. In closing, I'll leave you a quote from a great sage of my generation, Joni Mitchell. It don't always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone. On behalf of the Kensington Historical Society, thank you, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Eaton Akasanya. Nithya Raghavan.
Good evening, members of the County Council. My name is Nithya Raghavan, and I'm a long-time resident of Silver Spring. Thank you for the privilege and honor of letting me share my thoughts in support of the Montgomery Parks CIP. The residents of this county are extremely lucky in having abundant green space around them to relax and rejuvenate. I, for one, enjoy the verdant beauty of Wheaton Regional Park and its numerous trails and the breathtaking beauty of Brookside Gardens. I also volunteer at Brookside Gardens and always think that if there were a heaven on earth, this would be it. Every time I'm in one of our parks, it brings to my mind the words of John Muir that in every walk with nature, one receives far more than he seeks. Tonight, I am here to request you that you fully fund the Montgomery Parks CIP, including the very vital Brookside Gardens CIP. Reduction of the CIP reflects a decreasing priority for the parks at a time when we believe the relative value of our parks to the quality of life of our county residents is increasing. In today's world, filled with strife, discontent, divisiveness, and a feeling of uncertainty, parks are places of healing and a sanctuary of quiet. Parks and gardens are our oasis in the midst of urbanization and electronic chatter. Our parks play an important role in building strong communities, protecting our environment, and providing venues for physical activity and social gatherings. The impact of our parks on the environment, economy of the county, and the physical and mental well-being of not only the county residents, but also its visitors is huge. As Greta Thunberg pointed out, we are facing an existential threat due to climate change, and it is up to us to do everything within our capacity to preserve and maintain what natural resources and spaces we have. I request you, the County Council, to support the Parks and Brookside Gardens CIP budget. Many of our parks and its infrastructure are very dated and need to be updated. The crumbling conservatory and hardscapes at Brookside Gardens are desperately in need of help, and a Band-Aid isn't sufficient to take care of it. Worse still, reducing the park CIP budget will be like ripping off that flimsy protection on a gaping wound. I would like to conclude by quoting Jacques Cousteau, who said, "For most of history, man had to fight nature to survive. In this century, he is beginning to realize that in order to survive, he must protect it." Tonight, I sincerely urge the County Council to pay heed to his words by supporting our parks and fully funding its CIP budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Danny Che.
Good evening. My name is Danny Che. I'm the proud parent of a Glen Allen Elementary School student speaking on behalf of the county cluster. I have two issues I'd like to bring up tonight concerning Glen Allen Elementary School and Strathmore Elementary School. First, Glen Allen Elementary School is a focus school with over 50% of its students farm eligible. Targeted instruction in the earlier grades greatly helps our students move towards proficiency. Unfortunately, as Glen Allen's student enrollment has grown, we have had to make every classroom space available for regular instruction. This means that Glen Allen's award-winning STEM Academy now lacks an adequate permanent home to conduct experiments, house equipment, and carry out instruction. For the past 6 years, Glen Allen STEM Academy has been an academic model and inspiration for educators across the county. The STEM Academy, which services students from kindergarten to 5th grade, provides free after-school clubs and has a strong focus on girls in STEM. For this year, however, our STEM Academy was relocated to a small former computer lab space. That space lacks the necessary plumbing, sink, and fixtures available in the current classroom. The space could be retrofitted by installing a sink and accessing plumbing on the other side of a wall between the computer lab and adjacent administrative space, which currently has a sink. We ask that the County Council make this item a priority, allocating the small amount required to keep this invaluable program delivering STEM benefits to our children. Second, Strathmore Elementary School, over the last few years, have submitted multiple facility requests for portable classrooms to accommodate the growing student population. They have all been denied. The county has approved building additional small rooms in the open spaces in the 3rd and 5th grade pods, but those may only have minimal impact since there is already limited space in the pods. Along with the additional classrooms, an additional room is requested for administrative use to accommodate supplies such as office equipment and musical instruments. We ask that the County Council address the growing student population at Strathmore Elementary School by allocating the resources needed for additional portable classrooms and administrative room. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Groman.
Good evening, council members. My name is Melissa Groman. Like others, I'm testifying tonight regarding the lack of funding in the Capital Improvement Program budget by the County Executive for the Crescent Trail Tunnel under Wisconsin Avenue. I'm a 17-year resident of Bethesda and a parent to 2 school-aged children. My family frequently took advantage of the direct access to the Georgetown Branch Trail from my neighborhood before it was temporarily closed a year and a half ago for Purple Line construction. I'm here to ask you to please follow through on the commitment made to replace the trail tunnel under Wisconsin Avenue, a tunnel that was in use for over 20 years before it was closed down for the Purple Line. This commitment was an important factor in your gaining support of the Purple Line by area communities and organizations. Beyond that, I have serious concerns about safety should a surface trail crossing at Wisconsin Avenue serve as the only option for trail users. Just look at Little Falls Parkway. That's a much less trafficked 4-lane road with an at-grade crested trail crossing. due to various accidents and even a recent death of a cyclist. That 4-lane road has been reduced to a 2-lane road at the crossing in order to prevent further tragedies. Wisconsin Avenue is a 6-lane state road, one of the busiest and most congested in the county. No matter what is done to try to make a street-level trail crossing at Wisconsin Avenue safe, it is not a safe alternative for trail users. Furthermore, other roads with a similar level of traffic already have, as in River Road, or will have, as in Connecticut Avenue, above-grade trail crossings. I actually did some research into the tunnel's history, and I found some similarities with where we are today. In 1997, a week before the Georgetown branch section of the trail opened, the County Council pulled funding for the tunnel from the proposed budget. The community rallied. Over 8,000 signatures were gathered and protests were held. Ultimately, the county voted to fund the tunnel. A board member for the Coalition for the Crescent Trail said at the time, "The tunnel is the critical link in downtown Bethesda. Without it, hikers, bikers, runners, families, and children trying to go from one part of the trail to the other must travel a circuitous route along busy streets in the heart of Bethesda and must cross multiple lanes of heavy traffic at Wisconsin Avenue." That was said 20 years ago. Those words are even more true today. Pedestrian accidents are on the rise, and the completion of the Purple Line, combined with the implementation of the Bethesda Downtown Plan, will bring even more people into Bethesda. Council members, please don't kick this can down the road. Our region is once again having to rally for this critical feature. I urge you to follow through on your commitment, and as your predecessors did 20 years ago, please fund the tunnel. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Stewart.
Good evening. My name is Laura Stewart, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Einstein Cluster. I first want to acknowledge the very real budget constraints we face, causing the county executive to recommend $100 million be cut from the BOE budget. First of all, we must reduce the number of exemptions to the school impact tax. The Silver Spring Enterprise Zone exemptions were extended, but does that make sense today? I also asked the council look at the 2015 and 18 impact tax exemptions to encourage more MPDUs. The $55 million in lost impact tax revenue would fund a middle school renovation. I think we can all agree that the SSP is broken. I have faith that we can all come together to fix it in a way that encourages our economy to grow our CIP budget, and build the schools we need. I have great hopes the Built to Learn Act will be enacted into law. As we all know, there will be a matching requirement. Therefore, I strongly urge the County Council to take a less aggressive stance on the spending affordability guidelines. Meanwhile, MCCPTA is encouraging more flexibility at the state level when determining what expenditures to match, while also encouraging MCPS to build in a way that would capture more funds from the state. Einstein Cluster has 2 projects in the CIP. I encourage the County Council to find a way to keep both on track. Woodward High School is part of the Einstein High School solution. It is extremely important we do not delay this project, especially since Woodward also will be used as Northwood's holding school. As Woodward moves forward, Einstein community should continue to be an integral part of the Woodward programming discussion. Woodland Elementary School is the other major project, which has been recommended to be replaced in 2023. Woodland, built in the 1940s and renovated in the 70s, is truly at the end of its life cycle. There are constant bathroom, plumbing, and water fountain repairs needed. The cafeteria still has asbestos tiles, and pest issues are the norm. The issue which keeps Woodland's principals up at night is the lack of a bus loop. The narrow streets and impatient parents cause kids to be in danger every day. This project also increases capacity, which will be needed due to the current proposed building projects, including the 2,000 units at Forest Glen Metro Station. These major projects are important, but equally important is improving the way we maintain schools. Oakland Terrace has a 3-year-old request, repairs to a heavily used walking path. This is not unusual for such requests to be delayed year after year. All of our schools need water bottle filling stations. PTAs continue to fund them, but not all are equipped to do so. This is not only an equity issue, but a health and sustainability issue. The majority of Einstein Cluster parents support the boundary analysis. We want our dollars to go further. In conclusion, even though our CIP budget looks dire today, we have an opportunity to do business in a smarter way that will fix longstanding issues if we have the courage to move from the status quo.
Thank you very much. There are no questions, and we thank the panel for their testimony. The next panel and the final panel for this evening is Roger Payton, an individual, Thomas Devine, an individual, Fred Azarki, Azkarat, a Blair, what is it? Azkarate, Blair High School Cluster, David Dawn Hahn, an individual, Christina Misick, an individual, and Nick Keeling, an individual. Roger Payton, please.
I speak tonight in support of the Recreations Department budget, particularly for the funds needed for the renovation of its community centers. My remarks focus on the Caulfield Center, but I think that they apply equally well to all of the centers throughout the county. From early morning to late at night, the Caulfield Center offers a broad range of services to a diverse set of clients. These services include opportunities for recreation, everything from weightlifting to yoga and tai chi to volleyball and pool. It also offers educational classes. If you want to learn how to use a computer or how to handle your diabetes or need help with school, the Caulfield Center is the place to go. The center also provides meeting space for civic associations, for larger community meetings, and as well as for diverse social events. It is a very important part of our social infrastructure. But the Caulfield Center is in need of renovation. Most dramatically, as many of you know, it has suffered from periodic winter flooding when water pipes placed in the roof of the building outside the heat envelope freeze and burst. These floods have cost the county hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last several years and have led to prolonged closures. In addition, its physical plant needs to be updated, its floors need renovated, and its fixtures need to be replaced. The renovation of the Caulfield Center also offers an opportunity to tweak its design. In particular, it will provide a unique opportunity to create a permanent display dedicated to the history of Littonsville. Our recent sector plan called for the creation of a Littonsville History Museum, and the ideal place for this display is in the center. During its renovation, space can be reconfigured to house this display, which would then be open whenever the center is open. The current and the former county executives have spoken in favor of housing the museum in the center, as has the former director of the Recreation Department. Thanks, Gabe. We have had several very productive planning meetings with the current director, but in order for this project to move forward, the department must have funds for the renovation of its centers, and especially for the renovation of the Caulfield Center. I hope that you will support the department's budget request, and I hope that you will support the creation of the Littonsville History Museum within the walls of the Caulfield Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Devine.
Good evening, council members. My name is Dr. Tom Devine. I'm a Rockville resident and I'm a gardener. I'm here before you today to advocate for the funding you provide to gardens across our county and to share anecdotes from my involvement both as a county resident and as a volunteer. I've enjoyed the positive impacts of funding dispersed across the park systems, in particular at Brookside Gardens, and have seen the tremendous power of community gardens to do good for the local community as a volunteer garden community coordinator. In preparation for this testimony, I was struck by the alignment of the 7 vision elements and the ability of gardens to deliver this to the community in a cost-effective and generally mutually agreeable fashion. It's a passion that cuts across political, socioeconomic boundaries, and many other lines that typically divide your constituencies. No one dislikes gardening. Gardens have the ability to satisfy 6 of the 7 vision elements, and unfortunately I'm still at a loss at how they help commutes. These spaces bring together one of the widest swaths of the community that I've ever seen. It unites teenagers and senior citizens working side by side to bring together collections of diverse individuals. I've seen a 14-year-old manage a 200 square foot plot in his own, produce his own lettuce after solarizing the soil to kill weeds. He's learning responsibility, scientific thinking and processes, and community interaction that he will need to succeed in the future. I've seen parents with newborns and small children learn the basics of gardening and eagerly anticipate the carrot harvest to see how big their crop might be below the soil. New homeowners have used seasoned gardeners for advice and as sounding boards, adding to their new investment and creating gorgeous and valuable home properties woven into our local communities. I've seen aging senior citizens fighting health problems and being slowly restricted in their daily activities, still able to take pride in beautiful sugar snap pea trellises. They then turn to their Vietnamese American neighbor and learn the correct time to harvest tatsoi and bok choy as they've never grown those vegetables before in their life. These community gardens develop character and community you're seeking to foster. They teach local neighborhoods. They provide an omnipresent gardener there to quietly mind plants and keep an eye out. They inspire the next generation of leaders, giving cutting-edge opportunity to fall in love with STEM fields and become economic engines of our future county. They provide green space to rapidly urbanizing areas, and the health benefits of which are just beginning to be fully understood. Green, organic produce accompany many of the gardens, with robust water conservation practices and integrated pest management and an active compost system. The entire space requires group interaction, consensus, trust, something that will always be needed to support the desired, effective, and sustainable government you've preached. Based on the 2019 renewals, the Community Garden Program has had greater than 80% retention rate, and my garden filled its spaces in the first morning of new applications on February 1st. These spaces accomplish so much and are in such high demand, and the funding they receive is tremendously impactful. It is my understanding that the Parks Department has requested $253 million, and the County Executive has recommended a budget of $231.6. This leaves a delta to reconcile at $21.7 million across the park system. The drastic gap between the prepared request and the executive recommendation will make many park programs unexecutable or will render some carefully crafted master plans
Thank you very much.
obsolete.
We'll read the rest of your testimony.
Thanks, sir.
Fred.
Hi, President Katz. My name is Fred Ascarati. I'm a 22-year resident of Montgomery County. I also have 3 children in 3 different Montgomery County public schools, and I want to talk about the school's CIP budget this evening. I want to talk about some things that aren't in the superintendent's recommendation. To understand that even if we fully fund the CIP that the superintendent has put across, which we support, there's still some needs our schools have that we're not addressing. We were disappointed in the CIP that 2 of our schools were knocked out of potential renovation addition projects. Eastern Middle School, there's a school built in 1951 that was last renovated in 1976, 44 years ago. And under the old system, you know, Eastern had risen in the list and architects were meeting with stakeholders, and now there are renovations in limbo. Building issues at Eastern include, you know, cockroach infestation, mice and other pests. Their HVAC has flooded their media center. There's little space for some of their special programs like the Humanities Magnet or the ESOL program or special education. They've got outdated narrow hallways, inadequate bathrooms, and interior classroom space with little natural light. Also knocked out of the CIP was a scheduled 6th classroom addition at Piney Branch Elementary School. Now, there's language in the CIP that PBS would be in line for a major renovation in the next CIP 6 years from now. But with a building, the smallest plot of space in the county, 1.9 acres, no room for portables on the site, and literally no bus loop, so children who are driven to school have to cross an active bus loop to get into the building. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about Rolling Terrace Elementary. Now, at Rolling Terrace, they lack the adequate space in their cafeteria, so it creates a situation where a kid comes to school at 9, has breakfast, then at 10:15, they're having lunch, and they might not eat again till later that evening. You know, or students come to school, they have breakfast, and they don't have lunch till 1:15, spending 4 hours in that school without any food. And, you know, other schools have this issue, but it's compounded by Rolling Terrace being a Title I school with almost 80% of the students there being on our farms program. You know, unlike other expenditures, money for our schools is one that potentially has generational impact on our young people. Now, this impact could be negative or positive. Either way, there will ultimately be a payback for our county, the state, and our country. We hope the council continues to do their best to make sure we make decisions and fund the infrastructure necessary for this generation of students to have the kind of educational opportunity necessary to lead productive lives.
Thank you very much. Dawn Hahn.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Ayana Hahn, and I am the mother of a 3rd grade and 5th grade boy, both of whom attend Stonegate Elementary School. And I'm here to advocate that the County Council restore all the funding proposed by the BOE budget because it is imperative that Stonegate receive the new building it so desperately needs. I am a licensed psychotherapist with over 20 years of experience providing mental health services to children in various school settings. I want to speak about how capacity and general building issues are affecting the mental health and the productivity of the students and staff at Stonegate. Being that Stonegate was built in 1971 with a maximum capacity of 372, and the school is currently at 581, including both students and staff, you can imagine the kind of physical and mental stress this is putting on everyone. The students are packed in their classrooms like sardines and have very little room to complete the required work. They often must sit on the cold, hard floor or go out into the hallway. Stonegate has constant HVAC issues. The temperature in many classrooms is never regulated. It's too hot or too cold, depending on whether the system is working properly, if at all, that day. It's uncomfortable for everyone. Also, there are not enough bathroom facilities for the number of people in the building, and we know many children experience public bathroom anxiety. And what about children who have disabilities, which already make it difficult for them to learn? My 5th grade son, for example, has ADHD. He already has difficulty focusing and paying attention. Combine that with the fact that classrooms are overcrowded and there's no quiet spot for him or others to go, like a concentration station, because there's no space in the class for one. Then add in temperature issues. Stonegate's gym has no AC, and this is a space where kids go for PE. My 3rd grade son, like many other kids, is asthmatic. No AC, poor air quality, plus physical activity is a recipe for an asthma attack. Stonegate was built almost 50 years ago and has never undergone a true renovation or a modernization since then. Kids are outside of the main building attending classes in relocatables, and with the current school safety climate in this country, this should not be happening. There are no cameras outside monitoring them, which means our kids are going in and out of the building with no security. This causes anxiety for us as parents and for the kids, and of course for the staff who worry about their students going in and out of the building for various reasons, including using the bathroom. Kids who have classes in relocatables, should they have to worry about their safety every time they go into the main building? Should they have to feel like they need to survey their surroundings to make sure there's no one with a gun outside waiting to shoot them, or someone ready to snatch them as they innocently walk inside the bathroom? How are children supposed to learn if they don't feel safe? Kids in school should feel safe and comfortable, and we are failing our children and failing our staff by not giving them an appropriate building in which to teach and learn. Stonegate has been pushed aside long enough, and the time for us to get a new school is now. I implore you as a parent and as a mental health professional to please approve all of the CIP funds needed for school improvements. Thank you for your time and for indulging the Stonegate community's enthusiasm.
Thank you. Christina Misick. Christina? The last speaker for the evening will be Nick Keeling.
Just another immigrant. Last but not least, I hope. Everybody needs money. I'm Nick Keeling. I'm 81 years old, and I'm a runner. Not quite as eloquent as the people that preceded me, but just as passionate about the Capitol Crescent Trail Tunnel. This is not for me, it's for my children and my grandchildren. However, if I live as long as Kirk Douglas, then that's going to give me another 22 years of running up and down the Capitol Crescent Trail. It's an accident waiting to happen. I belong to Montgomery County Road Runners Club, but I'm not here representing that club. So anything I say, do not hold it against the Runners Club. Some of us, there are 200 people. I've run marathons since 2002. Sometimes there are 200 people on the trail. To expect those people to cross Wisconsin Avenue, and that's only half of the danger. The other half of the danger is running on the roads on the other side. When you put pedestrians, bikes, runners and cars on the same street, it's just an accident waiting to happen. $50 million is a lot of money. However, if the tunnel, when the tunnel's built, it's there forever. So everybody can have a safe journey from Silver Spring or wherever they're going for the rest of their lives. So the funding is very, very difficult, and everybody here has a very, very good cause. But there's been numerous people, and we're all very passionate about having this tunnel built. Please, I beg of you, find the money, get the funding from somewhere in order that I can spend the remainder of my life and my grandchildren, who happens to live just off of the Capitol Crescent Trail, and I hope have some of my genes, can continue to run up and down that trail in safety. I'm sorry for the notes. I didn't expect to speak this evening. I was on the wait list, so these are my notes. and you don't have anything. But I'm 42 seconds within my time limit, so you don't have to refer to my notes. But please try and find the money from somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no questions of the panel. This concludes our public hearing, and we thank everyone for being with us.